Hey everybody, it's Perch. I've said this 1,000 times now. It gets kind of old. Anyway, dear Perch P. Perchington, the P stands for poo. Well, okay, fair enough. I was wondering, I'm mostly wholly on board with your with your analysis of comics and most other commercially produced stories that lack quality and lack of marketing distribution responsible for the financial failure of most things as decried as woke today. However, are there many instances of stories you think failed financially because of, or at least significantly because of, wokeness? Thank you for all you do, adding my plea to keep your archive of videos available for fans. Nope, they're all going away. Um, well, yeah. So the problem is that these are all very interconnected. They don't exist in isolation. And what's a pain a little bit about the videos and the various things that I do is that it's very easy to take one line. Like this happens a lot in my comments where somebody will say, "This is stupid analysis, Birch. You should have said this," and then they say literally exactly what's in the video, word for word. In some cases, there was a video about $1 billion, and I made the point that the movies are not for adults; they're aimed at kids. The Disney movie, if you're doing Wish, the animated Disney movie, it is aimed at kids, in many cases, girls. It's not for adults. It's not for me. I use the example of I think Clownfish and Wes. That was just names pulled out of the air. They weren't them specifically, but it's not aimed at us. It's aimed for kids. However, big all caps underlying thing. You have to make sure you appeal enough to the parents that they'll consent to taking their kids to the movie. Meaning, you're not aiming the story at the adults, but you're aiming the kind of convenience, ease, like all like the adults are not going to pick the movie, but the adults are going to pay for it. So therefore, you have to at least cater to the adults, but you have to cater to them in a special way. And Disney knows this, and in the past they've been good with this. Pixar was legendarily good for this by both including kind of little Easter eggs for the adults, but also making sure to kind of give a nod to the parents of like, hey, it's Finding Nemo, and it's about a talking fish. And don't worry, parents, that we're not going to, flash up boobs in the middle of the movie. And also, you're not going to be bored out of your mind. It's not going to be insipid humor for children. It's going to be all right. I mean, you just got to work it. But at the end of the day, yes, the crux of the story is for kids. So the same thing is kind of true with comics and wokeness. First off, wokeness, and, this is just one of those facts. People will disagree with it, but it is a fact, is if you go onto YouTube right now and you search what is woke, you will get a dozen answers from a dozen people. Everybody will tell you I am the one true answer, but there are lots of answers to this. But generally speaking, woke is, my generation's politically correct, at least my definition of it. And it's inserting things for the sake of I don't know. It's for the sake of social commentary, for the sake of making people feel good about a particular kind of social aspect, as to the detriment of the story or the characters around it. It's kind of like it's just what would be you're doing a period piece about Norway, and you're like, well, we've got to include some ethnic diversity in there. It's like, yeah, except this is a movie about like 1400s Nordics. Like what kind of, like at this point you're defying history, but you're going to put in some ethnic diversity into this area that did not have it during this time period, and but you're going to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. That was an example, and there's many. But generally, a lot of the decisions that go into something that is frequently called woke, a lot of the decisions that go into that are bad decisions. They're decisions for reasons other than, commercial success, money, and viability. And so as a result, if they're bad decisions being made for the movie, then absolutely that's going to impact the quality, and then that's going to impact the return in the business for sure. And then when you layer on top of that, like in the case of comics, bad distribution, price point too high, everything else. I mean, here's maybe the big argument around why it's not as simple as just woke. Okay, there's 500 or so comics that are coming out in a given month. More than that, it's close to 600. And not all 600 of those comics are shitty. Despite what, somebody might have told you online, not all those comics suck. Several of those comics are good. Several of those comics are, I mean, there's a variety of genres, tones, everything else in these books. And yet, if you look at how they're selling, the non-woke book does not do better in terms of sales at the comic shop than the woke book in a lot of cases. People are talking about, Moon Knight by Jen McKay is a pretty damn good comic right now, and compared to, say, Captain Marvel. Well, Moon Knight is outselling Captain Marvel, but barely, not by enough that it should be. I'm not the super Moon Knight fan, but I acknowledge the comic book is good. It's entertaining. It's got some stuff going on. All right, it's fine. I think the quality of that book is much higher than, say, Captain Marvel. Yet the sales are not different enough to really represent that difference in quality. And so what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that there's things that are broken that go beyond, the fact that it's woke or not woke. It means the distribution is bad. It means the marketing is bad. It means the price point's bad. Like, there's a lot of pieces that go into it. It's not as simple as, hey, this book is too politically correct, therefore it fails, and the books that are, remain true or not. And this is the problem with the comic industry, is even when you get a story that is really, quite authentic and, but remains true to the characters and their motivations and how they're written and everything else. Philip Kennedy Johnson did a good Superman run that was very classic Superman. And the sales numbers for it were not significantly higher than the Bendis, even though they could be, they were night and day different. And so all that means is just it's not just the quality, it's other pieces too. And if the quality has dropped for any length of time, and you get then, a good writer or somebody who is respectful of the character and everything else puts out a good story, people will just magically come back. It takes a long time to drag them back. So if you're going to fix this, it's a and kind of equation. It's not just, hey, start putting out better stories. It's not just start paying creators more or certain creators more or hire different people. It's got to be, you've got to fix the distribution chain. You got to fix the marketing. You got to fix the quality of the book. And yeah, you have to fix the stories as well. They are all linked together. I think that, this comic retailer got, barraged for his opinion. Look, the two things that are going to be the third rail in comics for franchise comics, and by franchise comics, I mean Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, Captain, whatever, the characters and have been around for decades and decades. If the characters start acting and sounding different from the archetype of what they're like, then that's a major problem. It's going to hurt. These characters are built on reputation and longevity. So you can't, if you adjust them, if you try and quote unquote modernize them, it does not work. It will fail hard. And the second thing, and this is a really hard. I mean, this is one where you see people arguing all the time. It's frequently gets the comment, well, comics have always been political. All I can say is, if you are writing, and what's funny is Stephen King, I remember, had written some articles about this, been interviewed about this. He used to believe very strongly about this. I suspect the Stephen King of 2023 no longer agrees with himself from the past. But the writer of a book or a story or a comic, it should not sound like a lecture from that writer. It can't, the comic cannot, or the book, this is Stephen King, you say, it can't sound like the writer is lecturing you. Several of his stories were morality tales in some sense. I mean, they were horror, sure, but there was an aspect of morality that fit into his books. And the trick of a good writer is how you package these ideas in a way that, kind of sneaks up on the reader, or, is wrapped in a good story, a good narrative, and does not just hit somebody over the head with their message. And the problem is, comics, a lot of the writers today are not that sophisticated. And so what they want to do is put together a message of, that they kind of, for whatever reason, the message is trending on Twitter, They want to get into the comics, but they don't have the skill in order to do that in an effective way. And so it becomes very ham-fisted. And if you combine that with kind of warping the characters, it's a problem. I think, a lot of what I just described, many of you would classify as woke. So then, yeah, woke is very much a factor in all this. It's just that to solve it, you have to do a number of things beyond just changing the story, the writer, getting to a better content. You have to go much further. And that's a much, much harder thing to do. Not impossible, but quite a bit harder. Anyway, thanks for the question. I'm sure it will spark a robust debate in the comment section. But the problem I have with a lot of people right now, and a lot of YouTube, a lot of the internet, and they see this on every front, on every side, is that people are very much in the extreme. It's this reason and just this, and this is the only reason. They struggle to think on multi dimensions. In this case, you've got to fix a number of things in comics. It's not just one thing. And that lack of thinking is frankly what's frustrating me about comics. I mean, it's the reason why we got the diamond will exist forever. It's the best thing in the world. Why would we ever need anything different? Well, you got to think on multi levels, and that's one reason why manga was and is kicking the Western comics ass right now in sales, is because they took a variety approach of lots of different content, different genres, different packaging, different distribution, different marketing. Story. There are absolutely some woke manga stories, plenty of them. There's also some that are not. So they base many that are not. They basically went out and said, we're going to truly do what we hear Western comics creators or publishers say all the time. We're going to go for that new audience. They went for that new audience, and they took a multi-dimensional approach to do it. Whereas within the Western comics business, within the publishers, they said, we need a new audience, so we're going to have to kick out the old people to make room for the new. And that was the insanity. Anyway, love to hear the comments on this one, and thanks for listening.